Okay. Let's give everyone a minute to join the stream. It should be a fun one today. Really looking forward to doing this. What's cool is I haven't overclocked these cards yet. So I'm going to go and do it with you live and show you the process that I go through. So that'll be good. All right. Okay. So the first thing that I wanted to show you, and this is live, so for the person that just asked the question, I'm going to try and follow along with the comments and questions as we go, but I'll be focused most of the time on the actual overclocking and going through that process. I want to show you a couple of things. So first things, we're going to start with the RTX 5070. Yeah, I hate these boxes from that NVIDIA used this time, but that's what was in this. This is actually on the test stand next to me. You can see it's empty. The test stand is sitting next to me. I've got it on. I wanted to make sure that it actually, there wasn't a problem with it. So I put it in and tested it out and made sure that the drivers and everything were updated. So that's what we're going to be overclocking today. I did order, as I mentioned, a 9070 XT. It's supposed to arrive soon. If it arrives in time, I'll get I'll get some kind of notification when someone comes to the front door. If it does arrive in time, I will overclock that as well. I'm not sure that it will. I looked at UPS and it said it's supposed to be here around 2 p.m. my time, which wouldn't be good because it will be after the stream. So we'll see. However, the process is very similar. The only real difference from what I'm going to show you is that with AMD graphics cards, you can use the Adrenaline software. It's extremely convenient. I wish NVIDIA would put manual tuning in their new app, which they haven't done yet. They've promised that they will, but they haven't. So you do have to use third-party tools, and I'll walk you through that. But with AMD overclocking, you can use that directly, which is very convenient. And the only other thing is that AMD GPUs, at least from the 7000 series, I haven't tested a 9000 yet. I'll start that later today, have reacted very well to undervolting in the past. So like the GRE was an extremely good card when you undervolted, even the 7900 XTX. And so NVIDIA cards tend to like more voltage. So that's a little bit of a difference, and I'll walk you through that as we get there as well. So a couple of things. I'm going to show you this. So I put this spreadsheet together. You can use whatever tool you like. You can write the notes down. The only value of doing it in a spreadsheet is when you actually get the scores, when you see them dip, you can plot it and you can get an estimate of what a very good number is for these. And so the other thing I'll mention as well is that I already ran Speedway, Port Royal, and Steel Nomad and got my baseline scores. This is critically important. So make sure you do that. You have to baseline your system because otherwise you will have no idea how effective the overclock is. So I'll bring this back up, and basically what I did is I ran, I'm going to be using 3D Mark today. It's my favorite benchmarking tool. Very, very convenient for testing GPUs. You can go to my video on my channel, the GPU overclocking guide, to see the full range of software that you can use if you don't want to pay for 3D Mark, for example, which you can typically get for $5 or $10 on Steam. But I ran each one. I then list the temperatures. So the first one is the GPU temperature. The next one is the memory temperature. And then I also write down the wattage. I don't do that as I'm testing, which you'll see in a moment. But I do that for the baseline because I really want to understand what a good baseline is. And then when I overclock it, I can compare and say, hey, did the temperatures go up? By how much? Which they should. Did the power go up? By how much? And then how much, of course, the score went up, which is what you're really after. And then you can test games as well, which is really what you want to accomplish is more frames, right? More FPS. So that's important. So when you're starting, run your system the way that you've been using it in default mode without any overclock on the GPU. You can do what you like on the CPU, just make sure it's stable. Same thing with memory, make sure it's stable. But then, and then write those down somewhere, scribble them down, whatever. It doesn't really matter as long as you record them. Okay, so let's see. All right, let's pull up the system here. I'm going to put this full screen. I know that it's relatively small text. It's not going to matter because I'm going to walk you through everything. I'll just take a quick look at the questions. Could you please explain how do you choose your overclocking strategy from which metrics? So you can take a look at my video on this on the channel. It's the GPU overclocking guide, and that'll go in a little more detail around the strategy and the approach. The metric I use is the score or the FPS. That's really what it comes down to. Now, you can also look at temperatures. And so a strategy might be to minimize temperatures or something like that. I'm not going to do that here. This is just about getting a better score, i.e. getting better FPS. That's it, right? Do you have any numbers for Blender about 9070 XT or need to wait for better? So I don't have a 9070 XT at the moment. It's my first. I ordered two. I ordered the Sapphire Nitro Plus and the Red Devil from Power Color. They're my two favorite brands for AMD cards. The Power Color one will be here next week. I rush shipped the Sapphire model to try and get it here in time for this masterclass. The reason I did that, by the way, is because it uses the 12-volt high power power connector, and I wanted to. It just makes switching over cards much easier. But I can walk you through what I would have to do to switch over from an NVIDIA card to an AMD card by using DDU, if that's helpful as well. So let's overclock the 5070 first. And then I can talk about what you need to do if you're going to switch from, say, NVIDIA to AMD or vice versa, or Intel as well. Okay, so first things first, this is my test stand. This is my AM5 test stand. So I have a 9800 X3D. I can pull this up for you. This is CPU-Z. By the way, I can walk through all the different software I use, but this is CPU-Z. I'm not sure that CPU-Z doesn't really scale, so it's a bit small, but I'm using an ROG Crosshair X870E Hero board. I've got DDR5 6000, but it's CL26. It's their new kits out from G-Skill. G-Skill was kind enough to send me this kit. And it's fantastic kit, super low latency. You should be able to buy those on Newegg. I can put links to some of these components in the description of the video after we're done with the live stream. And then the 9800 X3D. I have optimized the 9800 X3D, and I've got a guide on my channel if you want to learn how to do that. But everything's running stable, in good shape. I do have Kahoo here. This is the tool that I recommend to test your memory stability. You really need to make sure, and I can't emphasize this enough, that your system is stable before starting any type of overclocking. If it's not, you won't know if the overclock causes an instability or if just the memory overclock or the CPU causes an instability. So you really do have to make sure that your system is stable. Let's see. All right. Just another question. Do you think getting an overclocked manufacturer card is actually worse than a non-overclocked card if you want to overclock it ourselves? So I think it's somewhat a waste of money to buy an overclock card, even though I just bought two overclocked 9070 XTs. It's a waste of money if you're buying it to increase your performance with the overclock, the factory overclock. It's not a waste of money if the cooling solution is better, or if the GPU had been binned. The problem is, and I'll go back on here just for a minute. The problem is manufacturers typically don't bin GPUs. And when I was at CES earlier in the year, I spoke with ASUS and MSI and others about whether they bin their high-end GPUs. And they said no. So that means that the chances of you getting, so for example, with ASUS, if you were to buy, if you could find and buy an Astral 5090 and compare that to a TUF 5090, you could have a better GPU in the TUF. So it doesn't, even though the Astral is factory overclocked higher, it doesn't really help you manually overclock the card. So my advice, if you're going to do a manual overclock, is to buy the cheapest variant, but be aware that the cooling solution will impact your results. So buy the cooling solution that you like the most. That's really my advice on that. Okay, back to the what we're going to do today. So you have your baseline set up. Let me pull that up again. So you have this set up. You've ran your baseline. You've ran Speedway, Port Royal, Steel Nomad, or whatever GPU benchmark you want to run. Just be aware that some benchmarks stress different parts of your GPU. So some will stress your memory more than your actual GPU core clock. So that's why I run 3 at a minimum. And then you should run your games as well. Okay, so that's where we're starting from. And let's jump into the testing here. So I like using HW Monitor. This is the tool that I prefer when I'm measuring temperatures and other things. If you scroll down, I've got it in dark mode. If you scroll down, you see NVIDIA GeForce RTX 5070, and it has the value currently. So if you're looking at this, my current GPU temp is 47 degrees Celsius. That's pretty good. It's not doing anything, so it should be low. My memory temp is 58, and this is a glitch. The hotspot is a glitch for 50 series cards. It says 255 degrees Celsius. It's not correct. It's not going to melt. I mean, this card would be on fire if that was true. I think it's a glitch, or there's no sensor there, or anyway, there's some issue there. It's happened on the 5090 and the 5080 that I've tested, so I just ignore it. Just look at GPU temp and memory temp. And then power, GPU power is listed here. It's currently pulling 18 watts, which is great. And it'll store the min and max. So what you need to do before you run any kind of test is go up here to view and click clear min max. And so that'll reset the min max so that you can go and run the test and go back in and say, here, my max temperature was this, my max for that particular benchmark. So that's one tool that I have open. There's another tool, GPU-Z, that you can have open too. And the reason GPU-Z is good, other than the fact that it's a great tool for simply looking at information about your card, and for example, to see if you had missing ROPs, you can look here under ROPs and you'll see the number of ROPs for the card. But you can go under sensors, and there's one important, again, this one, I don't think I can't expand the size, but there's a sensor or there's a measurement here called, let's see, it's called, it's because I haven't scrolled down. All right, so performance cap reason. This is really, really cool because when you're running something, it will, if you're doing an overclock, it'll tell you whether you're voltage limited or power limited. So that means that if you're increasing the power on the card, but you're voltage limited, you're not going to see any benefit. And vice versa. If you're increasing the voltage and you're power limited and you're at the max power, you're not going to see any advantage. So that can help you with your tuning as well. So let's open up Steam, since I have 3D Mark running through Steam. And let's see. And then we will open up 3D Mark and we'll start the process. And while I do this, I'll catch up on some questions here. Let's see. All right. And we'll load up 3D Mark. Is it safe to use a new 12-pin connector, or better to go with 8-pin connectors? So, it's a good question, Dennis. I don't think there's any issue with the 12-pin connector for cards that are way lower than 600 watts. The issue is for 5090s that are pushing that 600 watt limit. That's really where the issue has originated. And that's why you don't really see issues with 5070s or 5070 Ti's or even 5080s, because the power that they're putting in to the card is nowhere near that 600 watt limit. So it's safe. Now, the other part of that question is, should you buy an AMD card, a 9000 series card that uses a 12-pin connector or the 8-pin connector? I got both. I like the robustness of the 8-pin connectors. You obviously need to plug in more of them. That would likely be my preference, but I don't spend any time losing sleep on this. So, I've mentioned this many, many times before. A lot of tech channels love drama. They love to hype the hell out of any issue. You see that on all the big ones, right? Gamers Nexus, Jay's 2 Cents. They just love the drama. And the reason is it gives them clicks. So they give you the information, and most of the time it's reasonably accurate, but man, do they hype this. So don't lose any sleep over it. It's really not going to be an issue. If you have a 5090, there's really not much you can do anyway if you're using the 12-volt high-power connector. But I've tested a lot of cards, a lot of 5090s and 4090s with power going into it that's 600 watts. The only issue I ever saw was with those connectors that were recalled from, I can't remember, a cable mod. This is a cool feature, by the way, but I have a Matrix Platinum 4090, and it has, in the ASUS GPU Tweak 3 tool, it monitors the voltage going across all of those pins and the amps, the current. And so I was able to see before the recall that there was an issue with those connectors and stopped using them. The Astral cards also have this. You need sensors built on the card. So ASUS doesn't have it across its entire product line yet. But it is a very, very cool feature. That's the only thing that I can see that can be beneficial that you can actually do. But you need one of those cards. There's really not much else you can do. So just be careful, make sure it's plugged in, all of those good things. And there's also, there's a new standard, a 12-volt 2x6 connector versus the 12-volt high-power connector, which is kind of version 1 and version 2. The cable is identical. The connector was redesigned slightly to make sure that you get a better fit on the connection. That's basically it. So, by the way, don't go out and buy a new connector because you've got a 50 series card or a 9000 series card. Let's see. In my area, for the same price of $950, an ASRock 7900 XTX versus a Gigabyte 9070 XT, would I recommend a 9070 XT basically over a 7900 XTX? I don't know. If you're buying new, I would go with a 9070 simply because it has better ray tracing. And I think ray tracing is going to be in every game in the future. And it may not be an option at some point in the future. So it has better ray tracing capability. The rasterization performance is roughly the same, slightly lower. And it should run a lot cooler. You can get access to FSR4. I think there's a lot of advantages of going with it. So that would be my recommendation. I haven't tested both cards against each other yet, so we'll see. And the reason that I purchased the 9070 XT models that I did is that I have the exact same models in the 7900 XTX. I have a Red Devil and I have a Sapphire Nitro. So I want to do like Nitro versus Nitro and Red Devil versus Red Devil. I think that'll be a fun future video, so I'll do that. Ted mentioned that the build quality of the OC cards is usually better. I think that's a consideration, right? The cooling solution, build quality, you can take a look at it and determine that for yourself. We'll see. And Andrew pointed out that NVIDIA removed all hotspot sensors. Yeah, that's not cool. I don't like that at all. And I think I know why they did it, because I think people used to see that the hotspot was significantly higher and return the cards for a refund or to replace the cards. The reality is that hotspot sensor, if it was too much higher than the GPU, it would indicate that you need to repaste your GPU. So it was useful. So I don't like that they did that at all. That's not cool, but I appreciate that heads up, Andrew. That's good. Okay. All right, so we're going to start here. So remember, I got my baseline, and by the way, I'm using 2 mice and 2 keyboards. So I got my baseline set up. I ran Speedway. I got 5169. So keep that in mind. So that's my 5169 score. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to, all right, I've got these up. Now I have to open up some kind of overclocking software. Now, unfortunately, NVIDIA does not provide you with the option, and I'll show you. If you open up the NVIDIA app, they do not provide you with the option to overclock your card manually. And I've asked them multiple times when they're going to do this, and they're promised that it's coming, it's coming. It went through beta, it went out of beta in November, and still not there. They do have this feature called automatic tuning. The problem is it takes about half an hour to run. So I'm not going to do that here. It's a complete waste of time. It does a very mild overclock. And so you can do it if you like, if you want to take the easy approach, but you're not going to get great results from it. But that's the only option they have. They do allow you to vary the voltage and the power, but that's not something that we're going to use here because you can't do the manual overclock here anyway. So with that said, I've got MSI Afterburner, EVGA Precision, and I also have GPU Tweak 3. My favorite tool is GPU Tweak 3. And that's changed over time. It used to be MSI Afterburner, but I think ASUS has actually done a pretty good job with this tool in making it very easy to use, and it's my favorite tool. So first thing you can do, you can have the sensors on and off. It doesn't really matter, but go into settings up here at the top. And in case we get a hard lock when I do this testing, I'm going to make sure it starts with Windows, start minimized, and show monitor on program start. That's just this monitor on the side. Don't do the enhanced overclocking range unless we need it. It causes some issues at some point. And then make sure apply previous settings on program startup is ticked. Click on save and then close that. So now it's going to boot up and it's going to be down in your tray, your system tray, when you load things up. So my base GPU clock is 2512. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, let me move this up here. So let's see, I'm going to do this. So my base GPU is 2512, and then my base memory is, going back to the tool, it is 28002. All right. So now I go 28002. So I have those down, right? Like just record that somewhere because that's what we're going to do. And so what I like to do to start out is do this. All right. So I leave this on screen, and what I like to do is start with the GPU boost clock. By the way, you're not varying the base clock. That's not going to change. You're just playing around with how much it boosts. So, and it will boost based on thermal headroom and other considerations as well. So we're starting at 2512. I've never overclocked a 5070 before, so keep that in mind. And by the way, thank you to NVIDIA. They sent this to me as a sample, and I do greatly appreciate that. It's the only card in this new generation that I was sent a sample for. And I appreciate it because, you know, running a channel, obviously I have a lot of costs and I'm not generating a lot of revenue. So that's really helpful. So I know that, you know, people like to have NVIDIA as the boogeyman. They've done a lot of really strange kind of things, like Jensen getting up on stage and saying 5070 is equivalent to a 4090. Obviously, that wasn't true. But I really do appreciate that they sent this out to me. It makes a big difference. And so a big thank you to Jacob and some of you may know Jacob. He used to be at EVGA. He's at NVIDIA now. He's a great guy, and the team there has been super supportive. So I do appreciate that. So that's what I've got on the test stand. And let me see. So 2512, usually you can get, you should start this. If you really don't know what you're doing, start small increments, maybe 50 megahertz. I've played around with these cards in general a lot, and I've done a lot of overclocking. So I'm going to try and skip ahead a little. If it crashes, it crashes, and I'll show you that anyway. I want to show you a crash and show you what happens. but I'm going to push and see if I can get, this is very aggressive, by the way. I'm going to see if I can get 2700, wrong keyboard. All right, 2700, which would be a 188. So maybe, because I like nice round numbers, 2712. 2712. Oh, no, don't do that. That's not good. All right. All right, a nice round increase in the GPU boost clock of 200 megahertz. All right, so make sure you click apply, and that is now active, right? The system didn't crash. We're in good shape so far. And then we're going to go to benchmarks and go to Steel Nomad. Oh, sorry, Speedway. That's what we're going to start with. There's no reason why I start with Speedway. You could start with Steel Nomad or a different benchmark, but we're going to start with Speedway. Again, I'm going to clear the min-max and I'm going to click run. And while this is running, I will catch up on some questions and other things and just kind of walk you through this. So one thing that happens when you do this is that you get a little bit sick and tired of watching the same benchmark over and over again. But it is important when you're doing this to be patient. You shouldn't start the way I just started, right? I don't have any idea whether that is doable on this card or not. So it's a very high likelihood that I could crash my system here. So it would be better, like I said, to start in 50 megahertz increments. When you're looking at the benchmark run, you should be looking for any type of artifacts. If you start seeing artifacts, it's very likely that this benchmark will crash, right? I'm not seeing any artifacts at the moment. I just heard the fans kick up a notch. I did not hear them kick in. I didn't adjust the fan curves, by the way. I'm just leaving the default settings. I didn't hear them kick in when I ran this at default settings, at default clocks. So that means it is pulling more power to do this. By the way, I just realized that I forgot to increase the power and the voltage to do this. So that was a mistake. I should have done that first. It doesn't matter. I'm curious now. I just gave a 200 megahertz boost clock increase at the same power and voltage limits, and it's running, which means this card could be a very good overclocker, which is pretty cool. By the way, I love it when you find out that you've got a card that's a great overclocker. This ran successfully. So it will, if it's going to error out, it'll say error. It's all right. So 5737. Let's take a look at, all right. So 57. All right. Yeah. So, all right. So 5737. And this is just, I went to 2700 as the GPU base clock. So that's an increase. Well, that's really cool. That's an increase. I'm not going to worry about temps and things at the moment, but that's an increase of 11% off the bat, which is phenomenally good. Like, I'm shocked. That's awesome. All right. That's very cool. Now I want to actually go back and do what I was supposed to do, which was I want to go back in and set. All right, so I want to increase the power target. So the max that it can increase is 10%. And I also want to increase the voltage to the max at 100% increase here. It's not forcing that voltage. It's increasing the available voltage. But before I do that, let's see. The performance cap reason was voltage. That's interesting. So that's very interesting. So it really does need more voltage. So that's interesting. Typically the voltage will be important when I overclock the memory. But that's very interesting. So I increased the power target by 10% to 110%. I increased the voltage 100% and I hit apply. I'm going to rerun just because I'm curious now as to whether because it was voltage limited, I'm very curious to see whether it's going to become power limited, and whether the score increases. It should increase. So again, before I rerun this, so we're just doing Speedway at the moment. I'm going to move on to use the other benchmarks to really dial in the overclock and check their stability in a moment. So let's go to clear min max so I know what's going on there. And then I'm going to run again. And while I do that, I'm going to catch up on some of the questions. All right, so I'm undervolting. Eric said, I'm undervolting my Astral. You got an Astral 5090 overclock with really good results, but GPU tweak resets my memory clock every time I try to increase it. Wow, I don't know why it's doing that. So a couple of things. My 5090 versus 4090 video will be out next Friday. I had a very hard time overclocking my Founders Edition card. I spoke with NVIDIA about this. There was an issue with adjustment of the voltage in those, at least in those drivers. I thought it was a card issue. I think it's a driver issue. So I had a really hard time and did not get good results. So be aware of that. The one thing I would recommend, Eric, is to make sure you're using the latest version of GPU Tweak. And you have an amazing card. So you can also use the software to look at the current going across each of the wires going in on that 12-volt high-power connector. So that's very cool. But just make sure you have the latest version of GPU Tweak 3 because they recently, like within the last week or two, released a new version. So I would make sure you do that. And I'm not 100% sure that they've fixed the voltage issues, but given that this card, I think it was a 50 series issue, given that this card is just ran stable with a voltage tweak, they may have fixed that in the latest version of the drivers. So let's see, that didn't increase the results much, which is understandable. But I'm curious now to see, first of all, what was the reason? There was another voltage reason. Now, of course, you can't, when you tweak the voltage in the software, it's not like tweaking the voltage on these cards in the old days. So it's still voltage limited, which means that increasing the power further is not going to do anything. But I'm very curious to see 5756. Yeah, it increased. So it increased a little bit, 57, 56. I'm going to put a little note here. So increased power and voltage to max. This is super helpful when you come back in and want to try and figure out what happened. Where did I put that? Sorry, here. Okay. And then let's do this properly. Man, I'll just do it into a percentage. I can't help it. I'm an engineer. I don't like doing that, but I'll use the percentage thing. I typically like doing it myself. All right, so we'll see the percentage gain here. Oh, that didn't help. D8 is got to be that. Okay. All right. So we're already, it's pretty cool. We're already up to 11.4%, and I haven't tweaked. I haven't really done anything. This is a phenomenal. Let's see if I can get it up to 20% today. That's my goal. That would be exceptionally good. All right. Let's see what we're gonna tweak next. So now, I think we need to keep pushing on the GPU boost clock. So I'm going to put in a number that I'm pretty sure is going to crash this because I want to show you what happens when it crashes. But I'm gonna go for it and go with a 300 megahertz boost on the GPU boost clock. Right? So let's see what happens. Again, you clear the min max and we're going to run again. Let's see what happens. Okay, let me catch up on some questions. Feels like NVIDIA thinks they own the market. Well, the reason yeah, you're right, which they do. They really do own the market, which is unfortunate for consumers, right? And they don't care about. Look, I showed that in the last live stream. They don't care about gaming as much because it's 10% of their business at the moment. It's 90% is AI or data center, 10% is gaming. So they care because it's still a large number. They care and they don't care, right? They do care. That's where they came from, and they want to make it successful, and they do want to own as much of the market as they can. But they're really not going to get more than a 90% market share unless AMD and Intel completely abandon GPUs, which would be horrifically bad for consumers, right? And yes, I was super excited about the 9070 XT for that reason. You know, when you try to buy a graphics card and you can't buy one, and it's frustrating, you check every day, you're trying to get a 5090, 5080, whatever it may be, it's frustrating. And so you kind of do want to stick it to them a little bit and buy a different brand because, you know, like they didn't have to launch in January. What they did by launching with no inventory is they handed scalpers a gift. And so they really could have launched when there was more inventory and waited. And they chose not to do that. So I don't like that at all. And you can see how much pent up frustration there was. AMD cards sold out super fast too. I think it took about an hour. So, I think David said AMD would be doing the same. Yeah, look, the reality is that, you know, we may think that AMD is a better company than Nvidia because they came in with a good price. They didn't come in at a good price out of the goodness of their heart. They came in at a good price because they aren't selling as well, right? That the 7000 series wasn't selling as well as the 40 series. So they're not doing it out of the goodness of their heart. And I do think that if they were in a dominant position leading this, that they would probably act the same. You saw Intel used to do that. I mean, they still kind of do it with their CPUs. But now that AMD is really sticking it to them on the CPU side, Intel has to compete on price. And they're competing on more, although they're not quite there yet. But on GPU side, they really are. All right, so let's see, 5845. This card is insane. This card is like amazing. 58, all right. 5845 at 2800. Damn, 13%, and I haven't touched the memory. All right, like this is good. I'm so glad this is happening live because this is actually quite fun. When it crashes a lot, that's not so fun. But let's see, I may actually have to increase the overclocking range. Let's go for 29. Sorry, wrong keyboard. Let's go for 2912. That's a 400 megahertz boost. Let's keep pushing up by 100 and see what happens. I mean, it's gotta crash at some point. Hopefully the application crashes and you don't get a blue screen or get a reboot. But the good news is because it's on a different system, I'm just streaming this to this. So if it reboots, it's not going to reboot the stream. So don't worry about that. Okay, I reset the parameters. Not that I'm really using those. It's just for guidance. And let's see what happens here. So a question is there a known max temp value not to reach, or do you just monitor throttling? Yeah, I mean, if your temps are starting to get up in the 80s, then your cooling solution, you either have to adjust the fan curve to improve your cooling, or your cooling solution isn't quite cutting it. On modern on older GPUs, that was normal, but on modern GPUs, 40 series, 50 series, 7,000, and I haven't tested 9,000 yet, but I assume that's true. Start to get concerned if you're above 85 degrees Celsius. I wouldn't push much more than that for a daily driver, right? All right, let's see. David asks, if you don't know what you're doing, hey, hey, listen, we all have to learn at some point. That's why I want to do these classes. I'm making a lot of those how-to videos. We all learn. And by the way, a lot of your comments on the videos, that makes me think. Even if I disagree with an opinion or something, it still makes me think. And I step back and I think, man, am I right? And sometimes I'm not. And sometimes I'll dig a little bit and learn that, hey, I was misguided or whatever that may be. So we're all still learning. I'm learning every day. Like, I had no idea this card is amazing. It finished again. This is crazy. I'm kind of in shock. I'm nearly at 6,000. This is crazy. All right, 5968. So I'm at 2,900, 5968, and I'm gonna save this because I'm at 15%. That's crazy. All right. I am curious now. as to I should still be voltage limited, right? Yeah, I'm still VRAL with voltage limited. That makes sense. And my temperatures are 76 and 74. So it's getting up there, right? The card is starting to struggle a little, but 76 degrees is still fine. I don't really care about the temps because I'm trying for a max overclock here. I don't care about the temps as much, right? But I still have some headroom. The card, by the way, this 5070 is tiny compared to the 5090, and I've got a 5090 FE that I purchased and paid way too much for. But I have I don't have a 5080 FE, but compared to the 5090, this is half the size. It's crazy small. So they could have put a more robust cooler. I assume if you were to buy aftermarket, you would get a much more robust cooler. So I'm nearly at the end of my GPU boost clock range. I'm going to go for 500. So 3012. All right, this is at the end of the overclocking range. So if I can go higher, I'm going to go back in and increase the overclocking range here. But let's see if this runs, because this really shouldn't run. I don't know. All right, and how much power? We're using 275 watts. These cards are super efficient. It's crazy. All right, let's see what happens. I'm expecting the app to crash. I'm hoping the app crashes at some point and not the system, but we'll see. Okay, let's see. Let me try and catch up on some questions. Yeah, this is running incredibly well. It really is. Okay. So, question from random 1356. I see you're using the ASUS software, and you always have good things to say about ASUS. Well, actually, I don't. I did a video on I had a very bad experience with ASUS aftermarket support, and I produced an ASUS scam video, and it came out a week before Steve at Gamers Nexus did his video. So I don't always have good things to say, but I have always been a fan of ASUS, the quality of their products. I just didn't like their service, but the quality of their products has always been high. And I'm trying to build relationships with all the major manufacturers, and I was most impressed by ASUS at CES. JJ is outstanding. He's the person that I've been speaking with there. And he's incredibly knowledgeable, passionate, and they really do make great quality products and good looking products as well. So that's, GN had issues, I think, with their handheld, and they were legitimate issues. And my God, this ran again. I'm shocked. Let me finish this first. So you can check out my experience. It was with a 4090, and what they sent back, I wasn't too happy about that, and I really hammered them for that. Hopefully their service has improved. That being said, the service at all of these companies sucks, or at least it used to. So the good thing that GN did, which I truly appreciate, is they tried to hold them accountable. And if that leads to improved customer service for the entire community, then I really do appreciate that. I know I've given GN some crap recently for just being very drama focused, which I do agree with. If you look at their videos, they keep making drama videos. And I know they've split off and made a new channel as a result of it. But when they held Newegg accountable, when they held ASUS accountable, I really do appreciate that. They put a lot of work and effort into that, and I applaud Steve for that. So, all right, I'll get to the other questions in a moment. But again, this thing, it's like the Energizer Bunny. It just keeps going. This 6083, and I'm at 3,000. All right, I'm at nearly 20% without touching memory. That's really, I'm shocked. I really am in shock. And the bad thing about this is, like, I think this is giving you the wrong impression that overclocking is just so easy and straightforward. I don't remember the last time. Well, the last time I overclocked a component that was this easy and this enjoyable was the 9700X. I love that CPU. So now, also remember, silicon quality plays into this. I may have gotten extremely lucky with this CPU, with this GPU. Remember how I said they don't bin it? I could have just gotten a very good quality GPU, and I don't have another 5070 to test to see if that's true. So I'd be very curious for anyone watching, if you have a 5070, if you overclock it, please share with me that data, because I'm very curious. But I'm at the point now where I have to increase the range. So to do that, now this could cause a little bit of a glitch, but click on Enhance Overclocking Range and click on Save. And you see it says the screen might be flickering for several seconds as a result. Let's see what happens. Did I just crash the system, or is it just flickering? Yeah, see how it did something very weird here? All right, all right, let's do close. All right, it's done something weird. All right, there we go. Okay. Oh, it shut down. That's weird. It shut down HW monitor for who knows what reason. It didn't shut down GPU tweak, which is strange. Okay, so let's see. So now I need to pull it back up. I should probably reboot this. If I was doing this not live, I would reboot the system. I just don't want to waste time doing that. And the reason I would reboot is that sometimes when you increase the overclocking range, I've found in GPU tweaking can do some weird things. But why isn't this? You notice that HW monitor isn't running. All right, we're going to reboot the system. Make sure this is saved. So this is what I would do. So bear with me for a second. I can catch up on some questions while we do that. I am going to reboot this now that I've increased that range. Okay, so while that's restarting, I hope I didn't somehow tank the overclock. But if it does do some weird things when it reboots, that's a good thing to know. So it should have saved my, what was it, plus 500 GPU boost clock increase. And so we'll see that in a moment. Okay. Let's see. So yeah, personally, I like the Asus Pro. So do I. The tough GPUs are my favorite looking GPUs. I actually prefer them over the Astral and the Strix. And I just like the look of them. You know, given my background working in aerospace and defense for over 20 years, I love that kind of look and feel. All right. For software, I tried Armory Crate only, and only didn't work the way I wanted it. Oh man. All right. So Armory Crate, I have a hate relationship with it. I have a video on my channel about stutters and 1% lows, and the culprit was Armory Crate. It wasn't just Armory Crate. It was Armory Crate. One of the RGB options was tanking my 1% lows. This is not a joke. Go take a look at the video. I think it's the how do you fix stutters or something video. It was insane. And what it did is I'd just done a new build, an ultimate build. I rebuilt the entire platform, the entire PC. I tested every component. This video was supposed to be out, and it took me an extra month and a half. And then, unfortunately, no one watched it. So it was really a double hit for me. I enjoyed making it, but it was incredibly frustrating. Like I was losing sleep over it. And it was Armory Crate. So I want to do a video on like Armory Crate. And by the way, none of them are good. Armory Crate, the Gigabyte one, MSI Center, because those kind of things happen. The problem for me is and so yeah, you can uninstall it. And by the way, if you're going to uninstall it, you have to go to the Asus Armory Crate site and download an actual piece of software that uninstalls it properly. You can't just uninstall it through Windows. So, you can uninstall it, but if you have and use like other free RGB, software that's lighter, it doesn't, have as big an overhead. The problem is if you have an AIO with an LCD screen, you can't use the LCD screen unless you install Armory Crate. And that was my issue. So yeah, I'm not a fan of any of those software, and I only install it if I have to. I have it on this system. and I do make sure that it's not impacting performance. There was another update to Armory Crate recently that tanked Intel 14th and 13th gen performance. So it's crazy. Now that I have good contacts at ASUS, I can at least reach out to them and let them know. But at the time, I was talking with Linus, actually, from LTT, and he asked me, have you reached out to ASUS about this? This was just before the Core Ultras were being released. And I said no, because I didn't have a good contact there. So now that I'm building up those contacts, I can help. Yes, maybe the die is better than normal. So we're going to see. So let's get this back up and running. So let's open up Steam. Let's make sure that it loaded properly. See, it loaded, but it did not load the This is what I don't like about GPU. It's supposed to have the enhanced overclocking range, but it doesn't. It don't know why that is. So let me look at that again in a moment. So let's not open up anything else. I'm very curious if I dial in 3112 here. So it's good. It's good that 3112. See, it won't let me. So I'm going to go back in here and untick this and hit save. And I'm going to put it back on, and then I'm going to load up the other software. I don't know why it does this, and so maybe it would be better that I used MSI Afterburner or something as a result of this, but let's see what happens. Okay, so now I'm going to do it again. It's funny, I do get the sound on the system saying that it's detecting and undetecting something. So like you plug in a USB port. So that's interesting. All right, I do have the increased overclocking range. We're just going to go for it. Hopefully hardware monitor loads up this time. Yes, it did. So we're in good shape. And let me open up GPU tweak. This isn't that useful because I'm voltage limited constantly, so it's not that useful, but whatever. Let's see. So I have GPU tweak. Let's load up 3D Mark. All right, so I stopped at 500. We're gonna just keep pushing by 100 until this thing decides it doesn't want to run. Again, there are situations when I was doing this on the 5090, I was having a lot of problems, and so it appears that the latest driver, I was using the prior driver, may have fixed some of those issues. So that's interesting. I really want to go back and overclock the 5090 FE again. So let's see. But I also it was very interesting to dig into what those issues were. And I put that'll be in the video next week. And I show you some really cool tricks on how to reset the GPU boost clock. I'm hoping that happens here so I can bring it up, but we'll see. Okay, so where are we at? All right, so I'm going to go 3112. All right, 600. We're going to apply. All right. Let's see what happens again. All right, I'm going to clear this, and let's see if we're in good shape. Okay, let me catch up on some questions here. Let's see. No, so Ted asked, did I modify the speed of the fans? No, this is default fan speed behavior. So I could just boost the fans to max if I really wanted to get the max out of this, but I just want to leave them on default and see what I can do. So, Eric, where are you seeing hundreds of cards of the 50 series lineup? What outlet are you seeing those? Because I've been looking every day. I guess I've been focused on 5090. I'd really like to get an Astral 5090, and I'm not sure if ASUS will be able to get me a sample in the first half of the year of that. They might be able to later in the year, I think. But Anyway, we'll see. But yeah, if you could let us know where you're seeing a lot of them. I'm still seeing pretty big shortages online when I look. Let's see. If the price, David asks, if the price of the 9070 XT increases a lot, as rumored, what's the price point that's no longer worth it? Okay, so oh, look, it crashed. Finally. Cool. I mean, it's not good that it crashed, but it's good that it crashed. I mean, this couldn't go on forever. So now, hopefully, this is going to be a mild crash and the app will just, will error out. So let's see, can I move the mouse? Nope, I can't move the mouse. So this is a hard crash. So it looks like we found a hard limit. So I may have to do a hard reboot here. Let me see. Let me see if Control-Alt-Delete works. Nope. Okay, we're going to do a hard reset. Okay, so we found a limit. I mean, that's good. And preferably the reason that you don't increase by 100 megahertz every single time is that you want to try and find it. But, you know, it's nearly an hour into the stream, and I do want to show you, I do want to get to an actual overclock here and then show you what I do to testability. So let that reboot. We're going to load it up. Now what we're going to be able to do is narrow down onto what the real maximum is. So what I do in situations like this is that I have a situation or a set of clocks or an increase in overclock that worked and one that didn't. I split the difference and I try and run it again. That's really what I'm going to do. And I'm going to show you at the end, please remind me, but I'm going to show you what you need to do to clean up your system. For example, I had to hard reset the system here. And so there's a chance when you do that, you could screw up your Windows installation, but you're not going to screw it up to the point. When I say screw up, I should say you could mess up some of the files. Actually, let me show you now. I think this is important. So let's see. We're going to go to command. So open up command prompt, and you can see all the tools that I've been using. But open up command prompt, right click on it, and run it as an administrator. And you, by the way, I run this every single day, right? And type in sfc/scan now. And what this will do, it'll run through and make sure that that your Windows installation is all good. And so if you have files that have been corrupted somehow, it will fix them. And if it doesn't, it'll let you know. And there's a dism command, DISM command that you can use to make sure that your Windows library is in good shape too. But this is a command that I highly, highly recommend that you run often, at least once a week on your system. I bet you if you go and run this command now on your system, you will have corrupt files. If you have never run this, I can almost guarantee you will. I don't think this will, but okay. So Windows Resource Protection did not find any integrity violation. That's what you want. So I just wanted to show you that. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to load up. What's good is okay, so 600, I'm going to show you this. So I'm gonna do this right now just in case it has some kind of, it errors out again. So 3062? 3062. Oh, damn, the overclocking range dropped again. Well, that's great. Okay, let's do that again. All right. So I'll do this in a moment. Let's do this. Okay. So I'm going to increase this overclocking range when it lets me. All right, enhance overclocking range, save again. Yeah, a very weird glitch in this tool. I'll have to speak to ASUS about this and find out why it does this. But I've had this experience with GPU Tweak for a very long time when you increase the overclocking range. The other thing to point out is that this is not an ASUS card. So I don't think that's an issue, but I haven't ever experienced that. All right, so I'm at 500. So what I want to do is I want to put 50 on. So I want to go to 3062, right? So 3062 and apply. And now I'm going to be at 550. So what I want to do here is I want to say, So 3100 NA. All right. So now I want to go to 3050, and if I go back to here, so we're going to go to 3050, right? No, 3062. Oh, have I been writing them wrong? I've been writing them wrong, I think. Yeah, I've been writing these wrong, by the way. Man, that is really weird thing to do. Okay, so 3062. Let me do this. This is really weird. I don't know why I've been writing them wrong, but I've been writing based on the increases. Okay, so this one wasn't 3100. This one was 3062. Oh, so 3012. That's what this should be. Okay, so let me just fix this. 3012, 2912. All right, 2812. I'm just I know you can't see this, but give me 1 second. 2712, and then so 3112 did not run. Okay, so 3112 did not run. So now we're going to try 3062, and did I save that? Yeah, I saved that. So let's we've got to open up these again. It's the only annoying thing when it reboots. Yeah, unfortunately, HW monitors decided not to run. All right, whatever. I'll open up GPU-Z. I couldn't be bothered running it to get that to work. I'm not as concerned about temps at the moment, and I can actually measure the temps in here as well. So let's not worry about that. Let's load up 3D Mark. All right, I'm hoping this runs. If it runs, if this runs, you know that you're close to the limit, and that's where you start to dial in fine. And then I'm going to move on to memory clock. So, and we should be able to extract some more. Now, this may be a situation where it really loves GPU boost clock, overclocks, and the memory sucks. So, I'm going to start out relatively small on the memory and see what happens. Let's see. Okay. All right, so we've got Speedway, and we are going to run it and see what happens. So let's see, hopefully this runs. So while that's running, all right, I'll catch up. Okay, Andrew, I got a new computer and I'm excited to start overclocking for the first time. Still searching for a used, if I can find a good price. Yeah, so, yeah, I mean, 7900 XTX, if you can find that used, that would be excellent value, if they're lower price. Unfortunately, the used market is out of control too when you look at eBay. So eBay is probably not a great choice there. But, yeah, definitely, I think people I think people sold their older cards before they realized that the newer cards there was going to be an availability issue. I've seen that a lot. So there's a little bit of seller regret there. Would I do an overclock guide on the 9070 XT? Absolutely. I will, in most of the times when I compare two GPUs, I typically show how I overclock them and the performance they achieve. So the next video that I'm going to start working on Monday is 9070 XT versus a 5070 Ti. So that's what I'm working on next. So in a week after that, typically it takes me 2 weeks, a week of benchmarking and working on the script and filming, and then a week of editing, right? So usually it's about a 2-week turnaround. Let's see. Yeah, Eric pointed out that Samsung has had bad service too. By the way, I think that just crashed. So you see, oh no, it ran. Son of a gun. All right. So this is good. I want to show you this because this is very interesting. So it ran, okay, but what was the score there? 1 second. The score was 6,081. All right. So it did run, but you got some regression in score. So there is no value in now increasing it further. So given that what was that? A plus 500, which is the 3012, was higher than the 3062. Now I want to see if halfway between these two is better or halfway between these two. So now what I'm going to do is split the difference. So my next one is going to be this plus this divided by 2. And that'll tell me what I want to run next. So 3037 is halfway between this input, the GPU boost clock input, and this one, right? So 3037, and then if that's higher than 6083 or 6081, then that'll show me where a peak in the curve is. So that's the way that I do things. If that's unclear, please let me know while I go back. So if that's unclear why I did that, let me know when I go back and actually dial it in here. So I want to put in, what did I say? 3037? Yeah, 3037. So I'm going to split the difference between my two last successful runs because the score was roughly the same. So what I'm trying to figure out is it flat? Is it around 6,080 and it flattens out, or does it peak and then roll over? Finding a peak is finding the maximum, right? It's an optimization problem. Basically what AI does. All right. So the good news is it didn't crash. So let's run that again. And so it shouldn't crash. So that's good news. But it should, I'm curious to see whether we're finally getting close to a maximum. So I'm going to call it a day here in a moment, and then we're going to move on to memory overclocking because I want to show you how I check for stability later as well. Okay, let me catch up on some questions while this is running. Oh, that's cool. Let's see. So where were we? Samsung just refreshed Amazon, and the Sapphire Pulse 9070 XT is in stock, but for $940. I thought that was a base model. That's not cool. By the way, I did see the discussion around how partners were given rebates from AMD to put out base models, and now you won't see any more base models. That's kind of crappy if that happens. But I blame AMD here. They should have made an AMD card because that's the only way to control the price, right? That's the only way NVIDIA is able to control the price of their FEs is, you can still see the FEs through Best Buy and the NVIDIA store whenever they stock them, if they stock them, are still at MSRP. It's the only way you can control it is if you're vertically integrated and produce a card. So AMD not doing that this time really handed it over to the partners, and they're going to increase the cards because, as I mentioned in the last live stream, they don't get the GPUs at cost, right? Like they have to try and make profit. Look at this. It actually went up slightly, 6091. So 6091. Let's see, 6091. So it went up slightly. So that's interesting. So now I want to split the difference between. Sorry, now I want to split the difference. I don't know, by the way, when you look at this, I could plot a curve, but I don't know whether the peak is to the left of this in terms of slightly lower GPU boost clocks, or to the right. So as the final run, I'm going to split the difference between this, the 3012 and this one, just because I don't want to do the math in my head. So I'm going to run 3025. All right, that's going to be my final run. I've got nearly 20% out of this, which is insanely good. I just want to tell you it's not normal. All right, that's not normal. So I'm going to run 3025. Right. All right, 3025. I'm gonna leave it here after this run, and we're gonna move on to memory quickly because I don't want to have this live stream go on forever. Apart from the fact my wife is traveling, she's just turned 7, so she's here by herself. She's entertained, but there's only so long she will be entertained by herself. So I'm gonna have to I'm going to have to bug out of here in probably about 20 to 30 minutes. But I do want to complete this because I think it's important to see the process through. So as this is running, hopefully this gets me my max. Whatever it gets, we're going to decide what we go with and then move on to memory. Let's see. Yeah, so Random is saying, yeah, he agrees ASUS products are great, but their service is bad. Yeah, and their software is a coin toss. I agree. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Yeah, when I did the ASUS scan one, I got a lot of hate on that video. So what's crazy about when I did that video, I got a lot of really negative comments. People saying this is ridiculous. And then 1 week later, GN comes out with their video, their most successful video ever. And all of the haters, like I got haters on Reddit and everything, just went quiet. So, like I went on and was like, hey, I know you made this comment, but I noticed that you're not hating on GN for their basically identical video to what I put out there. Yeah, nothing, crickets. So, yeah, it's pretty weird, right? But anyway, whatever. I guess I was a pretty small channel at the time, right? I mean, I'm still relatively small, but I think I only had a small number of subscribers at the time. And so anyway, I'm still, Random said I'm still looking for software to turn off my GPU RGB. Huh, that's weird. So is it an ASUS, I assume it's an ASUS GPU, and the RGB is not working through the app? If it's not working through Armoury Crate, I would try uninstalling Armoury Crate with the tool and then reinstalling it. That should help. Have you had any experience buying Newegg refurbished GPUs? No, I haven't. So there, remember there was an issue with Newegg and a refurbished motherboard that GN purchased, and there was bent pins and other things. So I've been very cautious of it. But GPUs are a little different because it's a little more difficult to damage them, and hopefully Newegg is a little better. Anyway, Eric said when I post link, yeah. So unfortunately in YouTube, right? YouTube's very, very strict on posting links outside of YouTube. And you'll see that in comments. Sometimes people say to me, why are you deleting my comments? And I'm not, I didn't even see them. All social media platforms try and keep you on their platform. That's why it rewards videos if you watch longer and things like that. So, that's hopefully when they open up their chat feature, they're not going to be as strict with that. But yeah, it's probably why I should open up a Discord server, so that we can have those chats. All right. So back to this 6,083. So it went lower. Interesting. Okay. So I'm going to go with 3037. I like kind of round numbers. So what is it? 3037 was my peak. Let's see. 3037. So what was that again? 3037 was my peak. Oh yeah, no, that's plus 525. I'm good with that. All right. 3037. So now what are we going to do? We're going to boost the memory. And I'm going to go for it with a 1000 megahertz boost. 29002. I don't know why the 002, but so 29002. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, let's see, I'm going to put that. So now we're going to start with, I'm going to highlight this as the one I selected. And now I'm going to go with 29002. So I'm going to leave a gap there. So we started at 28002. And now we're going to go with this. And we're going to pull back up and run. So we're going to run Speedway again. So let's see. This should result in a pretty significant boost. Memory, if you can get memory overclocked, it typically results in a pretty significant boost in Speedway. So this will be interesting. I'm very curious. I have no idea whether this thing overclocks well or not. Obviously, it overclocks well on the GPU boost clock. I have no idea what to expect on the memory. So let's see. So as that runs, okay. Let's let's see. All right, let's see. I'm running this now. All right, maybe they sold UK. I'm just trying to catch up. Okay, so Andrew, you said you've come to terms with risking buying Newegg GPUs. Yeah, I mean, look, it's if you can get a 7900 XTX super cheap, I mean, absolutely. One thing I did buy recently, an older, was it 3070 Ti, and it will not run. But it's crazy. It actually runs FurMark and doesn't error out, but it will not run anything else. It's very weird. I pulled it apart, I repasted it, made sure everything looked good, but I don't know what's wrong with it, so I need to dig into that. Oh, there you go, Ted. Windows Resource Protection found corrupt files and successfully repaired them. I'm telling you, man, this is one of the coolest. When I discovered SFC Scan Now, I was shocked. I'll do a fresh install of Windows on a system, and when I get things set up, I will go in and run this, and it's somehow got corrupt files, and it's a fresh install of Windows. It's insane, right? So, yeah, I mean, this is something, it will make a difference to your experience in Windows. It really does. There's another command called disim, and it fixes your library so that when you run SFC Scan Now, it will actually pull the right files and repair them properly. So I need to share that with you too. So, all right. Whoa, 6152. I told you this would be a nice boost. So that's great. 6152. We're ahead. Wow, this is turning out to be a pretty decent overclocking session. All right, I got to get rid of my highlighting here. All right, I'm about to hit 20%, which is, if you told me before this started that I was going to be able to get 20%, I'd be like, that's insane. This also makes me want to do a video on this card now that it's such a phenomenal overclocker. I wasn't going to, but now I'm going to. This is really cool. All right, so we're going to push, and we're going to go for 30. We're going to push another 1,000 and see, and we're going to push another 1,000 and see what happens. All right. Okay, so let's pull up this again. Oh, crap. This is what happens when you have two keyboards. You start writing on the wrong one. Okay. All right, so we're at 2,000. What happened here? Uh-oh. Oh, I know why. Again, using the wrong... I can't believe it. All right. Okay, so we're at plus 2,000 on the memory now. Plus 2,000 megahertz on the memory. And you can see in the background, just jump straight to it. So let's see what happens. See if we can get my test set up to explode. Maybe that wouldn't be good. I got a lot more testing to do. So okay. All right. All right, so some advice on how to find good deals. That's good. I'm going to check some of these out. Yeah, I found Google, by the way, the statement was Price Runner, use Price Runner to use better deals. There's also the Brobean. Never heard of that. Google for shopping is very hit and miss, but one thing to be aware of, they also send you to a lot of scams too. So just be really careful, particularly if the price looks too good. I mean, if you go out and try and buy an RTX 5090 through Google Shopping and the price is close to MSRP, it's a scam. I'll tell you that now. There's no way, unless it's Best Buy, okay? But yeah, it's a scam. All right. Oh, so Random is saying that you turned off the RGB and then deleted unrecreate, and then the RGB came back on. So yeah, that's, I don't know what to tell you there. You try the what's the free RGB software that you can, I forget what it's called, but I use it sometimes. It's really cool. You can try that. I don't think NVIDIA app has any kind of RGB features, so you can't do it with that. All right, 6221. This card, man, this card just keeps on keeping on. 6221. All right, finally got 20%. All right, we hit 20%. I mean, that's exceptionally good. So I'm gonna try and find the limit here. So I'm really curious. This thing is a beast. By the way, please don't look at this and think that all 5070s will be able to do. I don't know if they will or not. Now I'm very curious. I know that Doofus had a 5070. I'm very curious as to what overclock he got. So I might reach out to him and ask him, because if he got a good overclock, then that might just mean that these cards in general are good. All right, let's see. So we're 3,000 now. This is interesting. This is an exceptionally good overclock. Honestly, anything above 10% is a good overclock, and in my opinion, worthwhile to run. Something at 20% is insanely good. Like kind of the good that when people talk about the good old days with Celeron processors and things, that's what we're talking about. So 20% plus 25, if I can get 25%, that would be insane. I'm not seeing any artifacts. Now, I'll pause on the questions for a minute. Oh yeah, there's artifacts. Did you see the visual glitch there? So this might not run, but there was definitely some visual glitches. So we're getting to the limit of what this card can handle. I'm not sure if you saw it. I wish I could have snapshotted that for everyone to see. But now I'm trying to see if there's any more. This thing is still running. I do think we're getting to a limit here. Yeah, there was some screen tearing, and so that is a good sign that you're pushing it perhaps too far. But it looks like this is going to run. This is be pretty funny if it runs. I'm not going to jump another 1,000 if this run. 60 ran. Wow. Okay. All right. So let's see. What was that again? That was 6291. Man, that's crazy. 6291. Wow. All right. 31002. So just because I don't want to risk a reboot, and I saw a bit of screen tearing, I'm going to go with 31502. All right. Let's try that. 31502. All right. 31502. All right, let's try this again. And since this is increased, you should see that screen tearing again. And it was towards the start. So take a look at this and let's see if we can see any other glitches or artifacts on screen. I haven't really seen too many artifacts. I've seen a few little ones, but the glitch was pretty obvious. All right. All right, let's see. Okay. All right, let's concentrate and see if you can see any glitches. This son of a gun. Oh, there's a few. There's a little bit there. This crazy card it looks like it's better now than it was the last run. This really is. This is insane. This is. I'm very, very pleasantly surprised. Like, I mean, I'm super surprised, super happy about it too. All right. Let's see. Yeah, that's a good point by Ted. You can remove the wire on the card if there's a plugin that you can remove. Sometimes there's not. Yeah, I'm gonna whoever mentioned, I think Eric mentioned the Bro Bean. I'm gonna have to check that out. I may have actually heard about that before. This thing ran, but it's not as high. 6280. Okay, that's good to know. All right, so that was the right move. So 6280. This is now, all right. So I'm gonna pick a number here, and so since it went down, I'm going to think that I'm not going to, just because we're running out of time, I'm not going to, the way to find an optimum here is probably going to be in a similar way that I did on the GPU boost clock, where what I would do now is split the difference and run 31 250. Let's do one last run, right? Let's do 31 252 and see what happens, right? And this will be the last run, and then I'll make a decision on what we do. All right. So let's see. 32. What was it? It was, I want to do 31 252. 31 252. And if I had the sensors up, I'd also be checking temperature and other thing. But you can see the temperature should be here anyway. GPU temp. Let's see. Yeah, it's getting up there. I mean, it's in the upper 70s. It's not so bad. I mean, for this plus 20% overclock, you're in the upper 70s on a very small card. This card, by the way, I think what I'll use it for in the future is a compact build. I'll do a super compact build, and this card will be ideal. It's so small. It's going to be great. So I'll do a mini ITX build or something like that. I've got a bunch of cases that I want to use, so that's what I'll use this card for in the future. I think it'll be great. This would be a really good media center card, actually, and good for gaming on like 120 hertz TV, for example. I think this card would be pretty good. I'm not sure what it can do in 4K yet, but that's something that I'll be testing. So here's an interesting thing, by the way. I haven't tested this card. My expectations were extremely low based on day one reviews of the 5070. And now that I've tested it, I love this card. So that kind of shows you to be very careful of, watching those day one reviews, right? Particularly from content creators that really don't have a good feel for the hardware or don't know what they're doing. In some of the larger ones, they will tested it at, look, if I just tested this at stock conditions, I would have no idea that it had this headroom. And, I mean, I really am shocked about how well this is overclocking. This is a beast of a little card. All right, 6274. How does that look? 62. All right, so this makes me, so that's weird, right? It bottomed out and then increased. I think that you're probably going to find a peak somewhere below 31,000. It's probably what I would do now because of this number is I'd go back and test the other side of 31,000. So I would test 30,900, something like that, to see if the peak is actually to the left. But since it's 1:30 my time, I'm gonna say that this is the peak. It's not perfect. It's not the max, but it's going to be relatively close. So 31002 is where we're going to call it. And now I'm going to show you what I do to test stability, right? Let's see, 31. Oh, wrong keyboard. 31002. So remember, this was just Speedway, and I mentioned that some of the other benchmarks will test things differently. So this is an overclock of plus 525 on the GPU boost clock and plus 3000 on the memory clock as it stands. So what I would do now is I would go back in and say, all right, so I got a score of 6291. I want to, so that's 62. Oh, I'm not showing you this. That's not, okay. So I got a score of 62, let's see, 6291. I'm going to go back in and say 6291. And now I'm going to test Port Royal, Steel Nomad. And if they pass, then I'm going to show, and this is a increase of, all right, so 21.7%, right? Let's see. I'm going to do this, and we're going to cut that into percentage. Well, what did I do? Did I not? I'm not supposed to delete that. Okay. What did I do? I don't know what I did. Why is that? Oh, I did dollars instead of percentage. I'm sorry. Okay. There we go. All right, 21.7% in Speedway. Now we're going to test Port Royal with the same settings, and we're going to see if it's, you know, stable in all of those. That's the first thing, and what the actual increase is going to be. So next we're going to do Port Royal. Port Royal is a ray tracing benchmark, and so I think this is going to be an interesting test to see if this overclock is stable when running a ray tracing workload. And then I'll also run Steel Nomad. And then I'll show you how to check for stability quickly, and we'll call it a day. All right, so as this runs, let me catch up on some of the questions. Let's see. All right, so there's a question here from Sebastian. What am I overclocking? It's in RTX 5070. It's doing amazingly well, right? Yeah, so the comment that 20% puts it on par with the 5070 Ti, well, yeah, I mean, it's 20, I'm shocked that it's over 20%, but yeah, it puts it in a different class, right? It's pretty impressive. I was never able to overclock my 4070 this much, 4070 Super. So Sebastian's asked, I wonder if 5080 would do a similar overclock. Take a look at my 5080 video. That card overclocks like a charm. So I was pleasantly surprised with my 5080. I was running a gigabyte, I forget what it was, the exact model. It's in the video. And I show you the overclock that was able to achieve. And again, that overclock like a charm. Using a similar process to what I'm doing here. So yes, the 5080 I've found to be a great overclocker too. Yeah. So yeah, they'll probably people are asking me about supers and waiting for supers and TIs. I'm pretty sure, I actually think that NVIDIA will, I don't think they'll do a 5090 Super or TI because they don't need to. They got no competition. Same as 4090. They didn't do it. Made no sense. 5080, I'm not so sure they're going to do a 5080 Super or TI either because they don't really have a direct competitor this year or this time around. If AMD, say, comes out with a 9070 XTX and it starts to compete with the 5080, then you might see it. I think they will come out with a 5070 Ti Super, a 5070 Super, because that's where the competition is. That's why we need healthy competition. They really need it, right? Let's see. All right. Can you compare this 5070 to a 4090? Yeah, I can. I'm going to do that in the video. I was planning to do a 5070 versus 4090 video, but kind of everyone did that. So I will include it in the 9070 XT versus 5070 Ti video. I'm very curious to where a 5070 falls out in that. So I'm not sure if I'll do like a 3 card comparison or do a head to head and just include those results. We'll see. Yeah, I feel your pain, stocks for real around the 9070 XT not showing. I was on there and every second I was refreshing and I got in there and placed the order on Newegg, but I didn't try and buy the MSRP models. I went straight for those higher end models that I purchased. 15254 is the number. So let's do this. Let's see what that is. 15, what was it? 15,254. 15,254. Let's see. Oh, 26% in Port Royal. Sorry, I got to check. That was, did I read that right? 15,254. I wrote that wrong. 15 to, oh no, I did write it right. 26%. That is insane. All right, last test, and it was stable. Still Nomad. All right, last test. Let's see if Steel Nomad runs. All right, this is the last test. So far, 22% Speedway, 26% in Port Royal, and of course, I've got to run some games and see what the FPS boost is. Your FPS increase won't be these numbers, won't be 26%, but it's probably going to be 15% plus, which is amazing. So yeah, I mean, my verdict after testing one card is this card is awesome. So let's see. And by the way, I know I got this as a sample from NVIDIA, but I don't think they test these cards before they send them out to see, you know, like one of the statements someone could make is, well, they knew you were going to benchmark it and test it, and so they gave you a better quality GPU. From everything I'm told, they don't do that. NVIDIA is such a big company now, and their focus is so heavily on AI. I don't think they care so much. So I don't think they do that. No, that doesn't mean I know that they don't. They could have somehow. But these boxes are packaged up, and you can see that they've come straight from China or wherever they do their manufacturing because of the labeling and everything on the outside. I don't think it's been opened up by anyone. Still has all those original shipping labels and things on it. Let's see. I'll catch up on some questions quickly before we wrap this up. Yeah, so Coffee mentioned he secured a pre-order for the XT only to get an email saying they didn't have enough inventory. I was very worried about that, and I've seen this message and this statement on Reddit a lot. So you're not alone, right? So yeah, I'm sorry that happened. There's one thing to not get the order, but to get it. So the thing I really hate is you place the order, you think you've got the order, you stop going somewhere else to buy one, which you could have done, and then you get told it's wrong, right? They've got to get better at this. It happens every single friggin' time that we go into this, right? So very, very frustrating. It's not cool. So I had that with the 5090 at Best Buy. It stayed in the cart for 10 minutes and then told me that I didn't get it. So yeah, thank you. Thank you, Best Buy. 5222. Let's see. All right, this looks like a good one. 21.4%. Wow, so that's an average. Let's see. All right. That's an average of what? 22%, something like that? 23%. Wow, that is impressive. Oh, I'm sorry, I wasn't sharing that. 23% average. You can see that here from 3D Mark GPU benchmarks. That is outstanding. I mean, that's all I can really say. This is outstanding. And I could have dialed in the memory a little bit more, but wow, like above 20%, super, super impressive. So, okay, so what do I do next? So, you know, I would lock this in. The one thing I would say to you, and I'll show you in a moment, is if you find a max, typically for day-to-day running, I would back off a little. So let's just say the GPU boost clock, that's an increase of 525. I'd back off to 500. The memory clock, if it was 3000, I'd back off to 2900, something like that. You're not going to lose much performance, but you're just going to enhance stability. And I would also test this in the games that you play. So in lieu of doing that, I'm going to pull up FurMark and I'm going to run this, right? So I'll run it at 4K. You can see RTX 5070. I always put on the artifact scanner. This is FurMark 2.0. Download the latest version and then click on run. And you'll be able to monitor the temperatures here. So you can see it's putting a heavy load on the GPU. and it's also showing you the temperatures. So if you look down the bottom, the temperature is 71 degrees. The load is 97%, right? 72 degrees. Let's see where that temperature kind of maxes out after running it for a few minutes. And then, you know, what it'll do is it'll increase pretty rapidly. Your fans will increase and ramp up, and you'll get to a stable point probably after about 10 minutes. I'm not going to run it for 10 minutes here. But you'll get to about a stable temperature range, and you'll be able to look at that. And if you don't get any errors and you don't get any artifacts, then you should be in good shape. And then again, run it in the games that you play. It's very, very important. People talk about stability like there's a universal truth to stability, and the reality is there's not. What's acceptable to me as, say, a gamer is not acceptable for me in a professional application like a server. Servers need to be up 100% of the time. They can't afford to go down. They can't afford to have any errors. So if I was going to test a server for stability, I'd test it in lots of different tools over multiple days. For a gamer, you don't need to run your system for 24 hours to check stability. If you get an error, okay, I mean, maybe if you're a professional gamer, but if I'm playing single player titles and my system somehow restarts, who cares, right? Okay, it's upsetting, but you don't want it to happen. But that's kind of, there's a different sense of stability. So don't get pulled into these arguments online with someone saying, that's not how you test stability. You've got to run this tool and that tool, and you've got to do it for 24 hours, and you got to do this, and you got to do that. No, I don't. Right? Like, that's just stupidity. I mean, if you want to do that, sure, but you don't have to do that. That's just silly, right? Let's see. Yeah, a statement here from Andrew. I wish AMD would have been heavily stocked at Best Buy. I looked at Best Buy, and they had a lot of XFX cards, but as soon as it went live, those cards were out of stock. So they did not have them in stock online. Perhaps they had them in stores. The thing about Best Buy is you can buy them from the in-store inventory. Micro Center, you have to be there in store. So apparently Micro Center had a lot of stock. So Ted pointed out that only downside of the 5070 is the amount of RAM. You're absolutely right. Everything else looks awesome. This would have been ideal with 16 gig. Now that would be a cool suggestion to NVIDIA. Make a 5070 Super with 16 gigabytes of RAM. That would be cool. And hopefully you've all had a chance to look at my how much RAM is enough, or the VRAM video that I did. I think 12 gigabytes is an absolute minimum at the moment, and 16 is ideal. If you've got 8, it's not the end of the world. You just have to rely more on upscaling at higher resolutions and graphic settings. That's it. You don't have to use FrameGen. People confuse FrameGen with upscaling. You don't have to use FrameGen. You can just turn on upscaling and you will get better performance, significantly better performance. So if you're interested, check that out. And Random pointed out that GN debunked that they don't send out bin chips to media. DeBauer did an amazing video with a lot of 7600Xs as well, even better than GN. Yeah, I prefer DeBauer over GN. He's an engineer, and not that GN does a bad job, but I really do like DeBauer's style. One thing I will be doing is reaching out to DeBauer to try and do a collab with him. I actually have a very large following in Germany. Like 7% of my audience is in Germany. So I think that would be a cool collab. I really like what he does, and that would be fun. So stay tuned on that for the future. All right, so let's take a look. We're capping out at about 80 degrees Celsius, 79, 80 degrees. I think if I ran this for 10 minutes, you can see the curve. It's really flattening out. So this card is not only handling the overclock well, there's no artifacts. It ran all of the benchmarks well, and the temps are okay. Like 80 degrees is not something I would be too worried about. Now, if I knew what the hotspot was, that would be interesting. But since NVIDIA decided that's not knowledge that I need to have, then so be it. But pretty phenomenal card. Outstanding. And there's a question here. Did you also undervolt it? No, in fact, I increased the voltage. So I mentioned this earlier in the video, and I'll do another one of these on AMD, but these masterclasses, I are going to be doing these for my membership, for members only, right? So I wanted to do this one for everyone. I'll be doing these inside my membership area. So if you want to participate in future events like this, future masterclasses. I'll do these on CPUs, GPUs, memory. These will be for members only. So I think my lowest membership tier is pretty low. It's like, I don't know, $1.99 or something like that. It's not a lot. But please consider becoming a member. It really does help the channel. I didn't undervolt this. NVIDIA GPUs tend to like extra voltage. AMD GPUs tend to like to be undervolted. So when I do this again, I'll do it for an AMD card. I'll show you what that means. You can do it in the Adrenaline tool to actually undervolt your card, and you'll see the difference in performance. It just adds a little bit more time to be able to tweak it, because now you've got a third variable. But that's what I've found, at least on the 7000 series. So no, you didn't, for, Halo, thank you for joining. He's a member of, or he or she, I'm not sure, but is a member of Blackbird PC Tech. You didn't miss out on anything, for the live stream that I'll do in the future. I'm not going to do a live stream next week, but I will do a live stream inside the membership area. So you'll be able to participate. And what I'll do is during the week, to do these masterclasses, I'll actually send out a poll to the members and find out what it is they would, what people would most like me to show them how to do. So whether that's memory tweaking or CPU overclocking or undervolting, whatever that may be. And I have a lot of videos on my channel on these topics as well. But there's something like today was cool, I thought. Because we were able to do it live, and I was legitimately shocked and surprised at how well this card overclocked. So again, thank you, big thank you to NVIDIA for sending it out to me. Phenomenal card. I will be including it in my, using it in my next video, because it's such a phenomenal overclocker. I'm really curious to see what that increase will be in games. And again, look, I've leveled out at 80 degrees, so not going to do that any longer. And since we really need to wrap things up, I went way over time, 1 hour and 46 minutes. So apologies for that. But yeah, that was fun. I appreciate you all for joining me today. I can't say enough positive things about the 5070, and I'll show you this quickly. That's the 5070 there running on the test bench. So you can see it there. It's pretty small relative to the size of the motherboard. But yeah, it's phenomenal card to overclock. I'm really happy that I overclocked that today. Then I selected that. Very, very cool card to overclock. A couple of things though, be aware, GPU quality, silicon quality does play into this. So I think I got lucky. I'm not sure. But I think I got lucky with his card. So that's one thing to keep in mind. And I was a bit aggressive with the approach that I took. Not every card you're going to be able to get 20%. Please don't have the expectation that when you overclock your GPU that you're going to get 20%. The expectation that I would have is 10% in 3D Mark benchmarks is much more reasonable. And that would be about what I would expect on decent cards, right? So just keep that in mind, right? This was an exception to the rule based on my past experience, with the exception that the 5080 was also a phenomenal overclocker. It wasn't as good as this, but this was exceptionally good. So hopefully you enjoyed that. Hopefully you consider joining Blackbird PC Tech as a member. I'm trying to enhance the quality of the content there so that you feel that investment is worth your time. And I really am excited about doing more of these masterclasses and doing those live so that we can all learn together. And I'm open to ideas. Throw some comments on this as it's up on YouTube about other things that you would like me to do masterclasses on. And for example, I'm going to do one in the future on building PC. I want to do one on selecting the right components. All of those things are critically important to having a good experience with PC. So hopefully you enjoyed this. I certainly did. I was super, super surprised. You would have heard that. That was genuine surprise. Again, I put this on the test stand and I ran it as the baseline this morning before the live stream. I'd never tested it before, so I was legitimately surprised at how well this could do. So that's the joy of overclocking. Hopefully, I've given you the bug of overclocking, right? This is free performance, right? Free performance for a card that you've purchased. This is something positive, right? No drama, free performance if you learn how to do it. And it's not difficult, as you've seen that. It's not rocket science, it's Lego. It's very, very straightforward. You're not going to kill your card. Don't worry about that. It is pretty easy to do, and you saw it here today. So I really appreciate you spending the time with me. Thank you so very much. I've got to run, and hopefully we'll be able to do another one of these again soon. Bye for now.